It is Monday, the 24th of February, 2025, and welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. Well, here's what I'm watching. First of all, generally speaking, the country is quieter. I can say that without any hesitation. Warmth has overtaken much of the U.S. That's probably the biggest headline of anything. There are still some stormy areas. We'll talk about those. Still chilly in the northeast, windy in the high plains. That's due to a strong jet stream blowing over the Rockies. It's almost always what's going to happen there in Montana, those areas. Show you the advisories for that. And there is a signal for severe weather in the deep south. And today's Monday, the 24th, and this signal is for a week from tomorrow. So that can be considered fantasy land, but what I am seeing about that signal is it's been consistently showing up every day. So I think there might be something to it a week from tomorrow in the deep south. But let's go back to the calmer weather pattern for a second here, talk about that. And it is indeed a nice weather pattern to be in here. Here's the visible satellite loop for today. Make sure I got my pen color set here to something we can see. There we go. A lot of high clouds blowing through the plains here. And there is one pretty rapid spin in the motion you can see up there in Canada, so low pressure aloft there, and kind of a lazy spin there in the Gulf of Mexico, and another spin very evident, as you can see by the cloud cover off the coast there. So if we change to the 500 millibar loop, you'll see there's a trough of low pressure right in through here into the Gulf Coast, another one in Canada from James and Hudson Bay southward, and then there's one way off the coast here. Now, I had a viewer ask me on the last video, what are these X's? What do they mean? So these are vorticity centers, a tendency for air to spin, and they're great at locating storms and the so-called upper-level disturbance that meteorologists, forecasters like myself will mention from time to time. And air spins for two reasons. Either they're shear, so that means there's really strong winds right here and not as strong here. So the air just kind of wants to do this on those X's. And then there's curvature. And curvature is like these little troughs right here and this one right here. And when they combine together, that's when you get your strongest storm signals. These are all pretty weak little weather systems. Probably, well, this one and this one are the two most pronounced. But over the last couple of weeks, we've certainly shown you much more strength in these systems than what we're showing you here. Now, there is one offshore. Again, you can't see it here, but the satellite can see it, and we'll switch to that. And boy, can they see it. And this is the water vapor satellite loop, so the orange and yellow colors are dry air. It's a good tracer for the atmosphere. Look how this low is really curling up and drawing that dry air right into the core, really tightly wound up. It's fascinating to watch that. This is an atmospheric river of sorts. It really isn't a one that's going to keep repeating itself. In fact, once this low dies out, that'll be the end of the moisture stream into Washington, Oregon here that's been occurring over the last couple of days, and that'll be it for a while. Here is the surface map as it appeared today at about noon, and we've got a couple of systems, most of them weak and many of them not really affecting the U.S. very strongly. They're kind of glancing blows weather systems. I guess we'll start in the southeast here in Florida, and we can see a low pressure center in the Gulf with an associated cold front and warm front right in through here. And this is bringing pretty wet weather to this part of the world now. And I'll show you the model loop here in a minute and what's going to happen with that rain system as it continues to move off in that direction. Meanwhile, if we go over the Great Lakes area, for instance, parts of New England, there's a strong south to kind of like southwesterly flow going on across this part of the world. And it's, of course, aided in the tremendous warm-up that's occurred through this part of the country, and warm front leading the charge of that warmer air there in Canada, and another cold front. And so they've got this weather system right here and another developing low right here, and the main storm track is going to be through this area here over the next couple of days, almost the next week or so. And then if we go to the western U.S., we have a kind of a lazy front draped roughly east-west through the northern Rockies, connecting to that occluded system that we just showed you on the satellite loop. That's this system right here. Always a vivid display when we show it to you, especially on the water vapor like we did. And that's bringing rain, and I'll show you the model data on that here in a minute, showing what will happen to that rain and snow over the next 48 hours. Well, here's a loop of the HRRR model, just showing precipitation type. This is good for the next 48 hours starting at noon today, which is Monday. And you can see a whole lot of really not a lot of activity. Let's start this again. 3, 2, 1. Here's a loop of the HRRR model. This is a 48-hour loop of precipitation type starting at noon today, so going through Wednesday at noon. And there's not a lot going on. There are some weather systems worth noting. Most particularly, we have this weak cool front that's going to be generating these showers right through here toward the end of the loop on Wednesday. That front, for a change, is not an Arctic blast. It's just a weak front whose roots, the air behind it, can't be traced to the Arctic, so that's actually a good thing. Then we have that storm in the Pacific Northwest. You can see the swirl in the radar simulation there, and then eventually this peters out by about Wednesday. We get some rain, some mountain snows that shift over into Montana, and then that dissipates, and that's the end of that. And then the northern end of that front is also producing some snows in Canada. That's right in here, and maybe some heavier rain showers in Ohio, but nothing severe with that. Not much rain, to be honest. And then the last feature over the next 48 hours is the rain that's leaving Florida after producing some pretty good downpours. That system going out to sea and heading north. Well, last week I was buried in advisories. This week, the only weather advisories in the whole country are in the northwestern U.S. It's either a high wind warning for much of Montana and Wyoming, and then because of the snow in the higher elevations of Washington and Oregon, it's either a winter storm warning or a winter weather advisory, and that system off the East Coast is a pretty windy one. You saw how tightly it was wound up, so we have wind advisories again in effect for those areas because of that as well. Here's a map I show you from time to time. It only works if there are actually low pressure areas developing, but this is kind of interesting to show kind of the storm tracks, I guess you could say. So this one kind of goes like this through the Great Lakes states. And so if you look at the dots, those are where the probabilities of all the models are putting the low center. And then a human forecaster puts the L right there. So you can see these progress through time. So you go from a green color to kind of an orange, burnt orange color, to a brown color, to a purple color. So this is this low progressing through the colors as it moves through the Great Lakes states. Pretty interesting to watch that. Also, that Florida rain, that's this low right here, moving kind of north-northeast, and that system off the Pacific Northwest coast is right there. And this low is too young. It's all green dots, but I can tell you by looking at the model data, it's going to do something like this. It's just that this particular map doesn't go out that far. We were talking about the warmth earlier, and there's a lot of it. Areas in the Dakotas and in Montana that had highs in the minus below zero range are going to be in the 40s, 50s, even in the 60s through parts of South Dakota. This is the high temperature map from the Weather Service data on Tuesday. The colors indicate relative warmth to normal. So anything yellow or red is above normal. And of course, you expect with the clouds out in the northwest here, you're going to have some below normal temperatures and with that system in Florida. But that changes on Thursday. You get more cloud cover in some areas down here in South Texas, but much of the country is still very, very mild for this time of year. And then on Saturday, there's no let up in that at all. That one low is another little clipper system that'll drop a cold front through the northeastern U.S. You can see some below normal readings there. But other than that, it is still primarily for the lower 48, more above normal temperatures than not. The weather is quiet, and so here is a look at the GFS model. This is precipitation type and isobars, so we can find areas of high and low pressure. And some of the things I already noted, like the rain system in Florida can be seen. Snows up in Canada, that system in the Pacific Northwest are all visible at the initialization time of this model earlier today. So we'll just kind of step through this real quick and see what happens. We're going through... let's go ahead to, this is Wednesday in the morning, so we've got that weak weather system. That's that front I was telling you about draping through here with a low pressure center. We showed you that low track on that graph just a few frames ago. That's in Wisconsin by Wednesday. Really a lack of precipitation across the lower 48, as I showed you on that HRR model. Some of that rain breaking out there in northern Missouri, maybe scattered back through Illinois and Chicago. And that'll do it for that. And then it'll may grow a little bit as we watch the model here. Maybe southern Illinois. We're getting into Thursday about noontime here. So more lake effect snows. And you can tell they're lake effect snows just by the way they bunch up right there along the edge of Lake Michigan. Right there. You know, there are some portions of the lake effect snow belt that have had almost 20, not inches, 20 feet of snow this year. And I kind of suspected that. Pretty amazing that the calculation was done on that. And it's probably not over for those folks, not quite yet anyway. Anyway, so this is Thursday in the afternoon, a real lack of precipitation. We're going to go forward here a little bit more. We have another fast-moving clipper system that did not show up on my low track because it's too far out in the future, but that's tracking along like that, producing a pretty good little snow band through Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, and then the lower peninsula of Michigan as well. And again, a real lack of precipitation across the country. This, by the way, is Friday late in the afternoon. And then we go through the weekend. We do finally have some changes occurring down here in the southern plains. This is part of a developing system that, and we'll fast forward to that here in a minute, that will bring more rain and storms eventually to Texas and maybe points further north than that. And we'll see what the GFS does with this. There's a little rain looping through Kansas. And then this is Monday morning about here, some rain in Arkansas. And then on Tuesday, we have cyclogenesis, formation of a low pressure center here over the plains. We have ample moisture flowing up from the Gulf by then. This is Tuesday in the afternoon. So this area right here is a potential for some severe weather. We'll just use a different color here to emphasize importance, right? This area right here is being watched on Tuesday. That'd be the 4th of March, and maybe points eastward later on the 5th for some severe weather potential down in that neck of the woods. Well, finally, let's talk about that severe storm signal. This is a map made by Northern Illinois University. It's where I got my bachelor's of meteorology degree, by the way, many years ago. Anyway, they have put this together. This didn't exist when I was there. I don't think they even had computer models much back then. Anyway, a supercell composite parameter. So to get a supercell, that's a severe cell that exists long enough to actually produce the severe weather. So you need wind shear and instability, and also low-level wind shear. But I think for supercells, we don't worry so much about that. For tornadoes, we would. But this is just an idea of what might happen. So this is actually March 3rd through March 10th. But I can tell you just by looking at the long-range models that this is meant to be sort of a maximum area for the 4th, and this right here is for the 5th. I think that's based on the GFS model. And then if we go ahead to I believe this is the Canadian model, same relative area, except that Texas is highlighted with a slightly higher probability, and then this in the deep south has a higher probability as well. So it's something to look to for Tuesday of next week. So that's a week from tomorrow. I'm recording this on the 24th. So yeah, we got some time to look at this. Is this surprising for that part of the country? Nope, shouldn't be, because if you go look at on the Storm Prediction Center's site, if you can go and fast forward this and scroll back and forth. It's fascinating to watch how severe weather blossoms over the Great Plains in the spring. But the severe probabilities, the maximum bullseye is right where we showed you that area in Mississippi and parts of Alabama. So it is expected this time of year that these storm systems will perhaps wreak some havoc with severe weather in the extreme southern U.S. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.